This is the Crossing Bridges podcast, addressing the topics of leadership, criminal justice, and fatherhood. How can we become better leaders? Where are all the daddies? Why is crime at an all-time high? Here is your host, Bayonle Arashi.
Okay, it's a brand new episode of Crossing Bridges, and I'm actually starting this episode of the show on a very sober note. It's election period in my beloved country of Nigeria. As many of you that are listening to this or watching this podcast may know or may not know yet, I am Nigerian originally. I was born some 42 years ago in the ancient city of Ibadan in Nigeria, or your state in Nigeria, and I had my elementary education, my high school education, and my tertiary education in Nigeria, and I've been a beneficiary of that great country. I'm a very proud Nigerian, and I'm always very, very in defense of that great nation because I feel it has a lot of potential despite all the challenges that it has been through, just like every other great nation on the planet Earth has been through in the past. So today on Crossing Bridges podcast, the title of this episode is going to be "Let's Talk Nigeria." It's that time of the year as a nation that is going to be 63 years old later this year. Nigeria has experienced some of the most challenging period in her life. It has experienced war. It has experienced poor leadership, which still exists till date. It has experienced what every nation that has the potential of being great has experienced. But one thing make Nigeria stand out among many other nations. It has some greatest amount of individuals in terms of human capacity, in terms of strength, in terms of intelligence. Nigeria has a nation of bilingual people, over 800 language spoken, even though we have like three major tribes, which is Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo, that are like the major part of the nation, but there are many other divergence of language being spoken and great people in different parts in that part of the country. So as the country is about to enter into another level of its polity right now, which is a general election to select or to choose the next leader of that nation, I feel and I feel obligated to come and discuss the nation and the issues that are very, very important for this coming election on today's show. Welcome to Crossing Bridges. My name is Bayonle Arashi. I'm always very excited to bring this podcast to you. You already know what the podcast stands for. It's to discuss the importance of leadership, talk about criminal justice and how much of violence that is happening all around our world today. And of course, fatherhood, the importance of men in our society. And so far, we've been able to cover those ground. And finally, on this show, I'm very, very excited that I've come from next episode of the show. Of course, there will be guests on the show. We have finally found a way to be hosted by a different podcast platform to record and be able to have people on board. As you know, everything that is new always have a different pattern to it and always have a capacity to grow to be better. So Nigeria, it is we'll be discussing today on the show. So welcome once again to the Crossing Bridges podcast. As a Nigerian that was born in that great country that is privileged to see it, to get educated in it, to work in it, to be a father and a parent and a husband in that nation, I believe I am in position to discuss it and to share my own opinion on my observation about the country, of course, and many, like many nations of the earth. One of the major issues that people do not talk about is the importance of leadership. I actually feel that the biggest challenge Nigeria faced today and has faced in the past has been the issue of leadership, But before I will even start from there at all, what is that nation Nigeria famous for? I'm actually going to read this through my phone because I actually did the research based on the ones I know. Nigeria is known for major things, but one of them is that it is an oil-rich nation. Nigeria, like somebody said, is probably the only nation on the planet Earth that has the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And what that person meant is that Nigeria is the nation that has liquefied natural gas in its country. Nigeria has kerosene that is used by many people for cooking, for many other things, for commercial use, and it also has diesel that can come directly from under that particular country's area of population. So that strength, that area of strength enough should make it one of the powerhouse of the world. But leadership has always been part of the challenge. Nigerians are some of the most religious people on the planet Earth. As of today, we actually have more religious centers, more churches than we have factories in Nigeria, which is very, very unfortunate if you ask me personally. Because if you look at any nation that has developed, any nation that has grown, any nation that has become a powerhouse today, what they have in potential has been their gross domestic product, which is their annual GDP, more than any other thing. We have a few people that actually produce some of the things that over 200 million population of that country enjoy. So the wealth is not going around, and this has created a huge vacuum between the rich and the poor. We have very, very few rich people in their thousands, and we have millions that are living in abject poverty. I am one of them, or I was one of them before I just have to find my own path and my own way out of life. First, like I said, I got educated in my primary education, as we call it, at Otsu Nursery and Primary School in Songwater, Ogun State, before I went back home, which is my state of origin in Ibadan, to go to Muslim grammar school in Odinjo in Ibadan. And after my secondary education, my parents deemed it that I was too young. Maybe I was around 15 when I finished in 1995, and my dad recommended that I go to Government Technical College, and which was why I was sent to the Vocational Education Center at Idiaba Abeokuta Government Technical College to study broadcast communication. And that was when, after I graduated in 1999, I had admission to go to Cardiff University in Wales to study electronics and broadcast communication. As when I remember very, very well that year that the one of the current person that is aspiring to be the president of the country today, in the person of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was the governor of Lagos State at that time. Me not knowing what to do, I actually took it upon myself with my dad, of course, to start looking for people to help to sponsor my education, because I remember also that the school fees then was £9,000, which covers the school fees, it covers accommodation for the period of 1 year as at that time. But unfortunately, all efforts to reach the governor at that time proved abortive and unsuccessful. And so I could not make that trip. I could not get that education. But I am not saying this to be an entitled person at all. One thing I am known for, in case you do not know, is I do not feel entitled to anything. And I'm hoping that if you are one person that is listening to this also today, that you will not be entitled to anything. You have right, but entitlement you should not have. So after that unsuccessful attempt, what I did next was to start looking for a job. If I couldn't get the education that I wanted to study overseas, and luckily for me, I started my path to a professional career, then getting a job at MITV. I've told this story on different podcasts and interviews that I've been to in the past, and that was how I found my own path in life, becoming a broadcaster there. And I've had opportunity to get some other education after that particular failure. So this are some of the things I think many other young people have had the opportunity to do, but they could not do it. Hence, they gave up on themselves and they feel the country failed them. But unfortunately, up till date, my experience was dated back to 1999, which was 24 years ago. If you look at it based on today's date and the recording of this particular podcast, the same situation still occurs. The people that are poor do not have access to the rich, to the people that can be able to help them to fulfill their dreams. The vacuum between the poor and the rich is too extreme, and it is too difficult for people, for young people to really believe in the country. Hence, over the last 10 years, you have seen a serious trail of people moving out of the country in droves, in thousands, finding their way out of Nigeria to somewhere else where hopefully there's a system in place that will be able to help them if they're able to work. Remember, one of the things Nigeria is known for is the power, the strength, the courage that we have in and the belief that we have in hard work. Nigerians are some of the most hardworking people on the planet Earth. So anywhere we find ourselves, we always have that capacity to be able to do our best, to work very hard, and to study very hard to get whatever we want. So you see these a massive exodus of people moving out of the country in their thousand, just trying to find path pathway at some other way to be successful in life. But how do we control this? How do we look at, how do we fix this? How do we make it better so that the younger generations coming can actually start thinking on how to believe in their country again, how to put him back? Because for some of us, including yours truly, I was one of those people that made that decision about 8 years ago after traveling to different countries of the world and see the way things are working. I have to advise myself. And looking at my young four daughters back then, the oldest being 10-year-old and the youngest being 1 year old, and looking at them that how am I going to educate these girls? How am I going to make them to be better than me? How am I going to create a life that is better for them than the one that I am having at the moment? So the decision for me to leave Nigeria at that time and to relocate to the United States where I am now was born out of me thinking beyond myself, thinking about my children, about my parents that are already getting old at that time, about my younger ones that are looking up on me, being the first child of the family, believing that because that is the way it works in Africa. The younger ones always look ahead to their elder ones to see them take the lead and make way for them. And that was one of the reasons why I took that position back then. And like I said, many other people are taking this position. I read an article about earlier today before this recording by a lawyer and a political analyst called Dele Farotimi. He was talking in that 16-minute article about the proposed protest that is planned by one of the top artists in Nigeria called Two-Face Idibia, because Two-Face, he feels, has the capacity to lead people, to call people to action. And he was talking about how that protest will not lead to anything. But my biggest takeaway from that article was him talking about the kind of music that is being released into the younger generation these days. I think talking about how Nigerians are actually the problem of that nation itself. Because once some of these leaders, some of these, I can't even call them this, some of these powerful people we have at the top are able to reach out to the few that can control the younger ones, and then they tell them what to do, everybody stops. Nobody believes in protest again. Nobody believes in change that is going to fit and affect the others going forward. So he was talking about it, that what we need to look at is to start educating the people on believing in the country that, okay, what are the things that we are going to protest for? What is the problem? What do we stand to achieve? What are we going to do after this particular protest? Or what is the aim of this protest? Why do we want to protest in the first place? I think personally, the first thing the nation of Nigeria need to focus on going forward is to fix the rule of law. Until the rule of law in Nigeria and in many other African countries is fixed to be able to affect anyone regardless of their position, their capacity, their strength, their connection. I think that no nation on that planet Earth has a right or the strength or the power to move forward if the rule of law does not affect everyone. Just take a look at any nation or any economy that is working out there. The number one thing, including the United States, that Nigeria is using as an example, or the United Kingdom, which is one that gave that country its independence, and look at how it functions. It is all about the rule of law. The rule of law affects the president. It affects everybody. If the law affects the top person, it must affect the poor. If it affects the rich, it has to affect the poor. So if our rule of law can be fixed to be able to affect everybody, I believe that we are going to set the nation on the right path to be able to move on to greater things. Secondly, we need to start taking proper and deeper look at leadership. Whoever that wants to come to power, thank God the election is coming up. The general election is coming up on Saturday, February 25th of this 2023. I am hoping that among the three candidates that are proposing to lead that nation in the presence of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, former governor, senator, and leader of the current All Progressive Congress that is ruling in Nigeria at the moment, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and of course, a former businessman and governor of the state, who for me has shown more strength and more leadership and more grace in the person of Mr. Peter Obi. Three of them are the ones that have come forward. I mean, not only three of them, but these are the top three candidates. We have others, with all due respect to them. Mr. Omoyele Sowore is another leader that is out there speaking his mind, but I just feel outside of these three, the others do not have or do not pull enough strength as much as these three have pulled. I feel that these three have to show us what they have done in the past. And you, as a person that is willing to go out and vote at that particular time, you have to ask yourself, what has these three people done? You have that power, you have that grace, you have that strength, you have the opportunity. You can look at it on your phone. You can ask questions from your parents if you're too young. What has these three people do for themselves in the past? What is their capacity? You have to look at them critically as a person by yourself and make that decision. Do I really think this person deserves to be the president or the leader of my country at this particular time, in this particular generation, at this particular period of the world where the world is moving at such a fast pace, and with the human capacity that Nigeria has? Who has that strength? Who has that capacity? Who has that leadership quality to lead Nigeria towards where it's supposed to be? We are not going to be looking at what the current president have done, because as far as many of us are concerned, that is his capacity. Unfortunately, he was not very visible. I remember, and I'm saying this very, very clearly, I was one of the few that believed in current President Muhammadu Buhari back in 2015 to come on the scene and clear the scene of many things that we are known for. Number one of them being corruption. Nigeria leadership is so corrupted, so corrupted that it will make your stomach sick. But unfortunately, the president's health did not help him, and of course, I think the people around him as well did not do him many favor as well. But to his best capability, I believe he has done what he can do. So we are not going to be playing the party of blaming anyone at this time, but the blame will be on all of us going forward. If we as a nation and as a people make the same mistake again to vote anyone that we do not think can lead this nation forward, look beyond tribalism, look beyond language, look beyond what this person has done for me. Look at your children, look at the country, look at where we are at the moment. So many heartbreaking things in Nigeria in the last few weeks in itself. There's no place I'm going to start from. Is it the challenge of people not being able to get money that they have in their bank account to be able to withdraw just because the nation changes the format from an old currency to a new currency? The banks lack the capacity to be able to provide the new currency for them to withdraw from their money. People do not have access to their own money. How crazy how crazier can it get? Or is it the intentional accident, the intentional killing of people? You see trucks falling upon people on the road in broad daylight, killing them just for them going out to look for what they're going to eat? Or is it the challenge of insecurity, kidnapping, people being kidnapped? They're gonna ask their family for money. Their family are going to pay the money, but they will still lose their life at the end of the day. Almost half of part of the nation in the northern part of the country is filled by insurgents. So much criminality back home. Which way, Nigeria? Where are we headed? I want you to ask yourself that critical question. Either you want to vote for Atiku Abubakar, for Bola Tinubu, for Yele Sowore, or for Peter Obi. Think about it. Ask yourself that question. Is it worth it? Why am I doing it? What is the reason why this person is my favorite candidate? I'm really hoping you will take a deep breath and think about this. I thank you for listening. I thank you for watching. And I really hope next week when I come, we will really talk better on this discussion. And my final note on this, as I read in that particular article that I mentioned earlier, which is a very, very strong prayer, is that may God save Nigeria from Nigerians. So help us God. Have an amazing day and have an amazing week ahead. It's been my pleasure bringing this episode of podcast to you, of Crossing Bridges podcast to you. My name is Bayonle Arashi. Till I see you again next time, God bless you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Crossing Bridges podcast with Bayonle Arashi. Your comments, suggestions, and ideas are welcomed. Follow Bayonle on all social media platforms at Bayonle Arashi or visit www.bayonlearashi.com for coaching and speaking engagements. See you next time.